Hello everyone and welcome to my 5th Christmas card idea. Since December is here and it's not that long to go till Christmas, from now on I'm going to be creating very simple, quick to make cards. All you need are watercolor supplies. And in this video I will show you how I made this card. I painted a background with very simple poinsettias. So first let me show you how I painted the poinsettia. It's nothing detailed, it's very loose. All I was painting were very simple, basic leaves. I painted 5 red leaves, technically in a shape of a star, but that was not planned. And what I found very helpful is moving the paper as I was painting the next leaf. I was also making sure that I leave the middle empty. To paint the leaves, you should be able to paint them with 1 or 2 strokes. It does not work for me all the time. Here it didn't, but no problem. I just did a few additional strokes to adjust the shape. Here I dried the leaves with my heat tool, but on the background I didn't need to do that because once I finished the background, the flowers were already dry. Next, I painted the green leaves. I painted them the same way as I painted the red leaves. I actually painted them quicker because they are just filler pieces. Here I painted 3 leaves, but you can paint more if you want. If there is space, you can paint 2 next to each other as well. That's all up to you. For the middle of the flower here, I used a dark yellow, but for the actual background, I used gold. But if you don't have gold, you can use dark yellow. So this is how I will be painting the poinsettias for the background. You can definitely use normal watercolors to make this card. I was using the Cotman paints for the example, but for the actual card I will be using these metallic watercolors, because that's how this card came to be. But I also made one card with the normal paints and I will show it to you at the end of this video. Alright, let's paint the background with the poinsettias. I didn't tape the cardstock because I didn't want to have a border, especially because this cardstock is already smaller than the card base. And I was not going to be using too much water anyway. But if you want to tape it up, do so. So, I started painting. I painted the leaves exactly as I showed you in the example. I used this red metallic paint. It's more like copper. Actually, except for the purple and blue, the colors are not as vibrant, they are more subtle. These watercolors are nothing special, they cost me only €8, which is a similar number in dollars. Would I recommend them? Yes and no. I'm happy with the paints, but I would not buy them again. Because since I bought these paints, I learned that Koretake Konsai Tambi has a few sets of metallic paints, and one of the sets has red, blue and purple. These are the colors I was looking for. I already have the golden paints from Koretake and I like them, so if I would be buying again, I would prefer to buy those. Also, Finetech I heard is a great option for metallic watercolors, but they are quite expensive, especially if you are buying a set. I sped up the video quite a bit since I'm repeating the same process, filling up the background. I had a little bit of problems with water control, especially with the first flower. This happens to me most of the time at the start of painting, and I'm also using the Canson XL watercolor cardstock, which does not always absorb the water very well. You might have better luck with the cotton cardstock. But I'm not complaining, the price of the Canson XL is just fantastic. And once I painted a few flowers, it was really flowing, and I was painting quite quickly. Actually, this is a great card idea to reproduce and create multiple cards at once. You could also use a bigger cardstock, fill the background with the flowers and cut it down. Also, what you might consider is using a black cardstock. These paints look very good on a black cardstock, and you can actually get a black watercolor cardstock. So the background with the red leaves is done. The leaves are mostly dry, but I still let it sit for a few minutes just in case. And then I started painting the green leaves. As you can see, the green is quite light, and even though I would have preferred to have more vibrant colors, I still like it. It's just different. I painted the green leaves in between the red ones. I would say I mostly painted a leaf between each petal. It just looked the best to me, but there were some places where I painted fewer leaves, and at some places I managed to fit 2 leaves next to each other. So the leaves are done. Next I painted the centers of the flower. I used a gold paint for this, and with a small brush I painted dots in the center. The last step, and this is completely optional, I painted clusters of dots between the flowers. For this I used the gold paint again, but you can completely skip this. I often create splatter, but here I thought it would not fit, and all I wanted to do is fill up the spaces between the flowers. Another optional step, this is something I like to do. I painted the edges of the cardstock using the golden paint. But again, you can skip this. I really like that my panels have some kind of a interesting border. Often I use a stitched rectangular die. Sometimes I use a colored cardstock behind the panel. But the easiest way to add a border is to use the paints. So I painted all 4 edges of the panel and then I let it dry. So the background is completely done, and while it was drying, I worked on the greeting. I'm using a stamp for the greeting, but you can definitely write it yourself. Either creating a banner or you can write directly onto the cardstock. I decided to use a craft cardstock and a stamp with a Merry Christmas greeting. I decided to heat emboss it. First, I treated the cardstock with an anti-static powder. This helps to prevent the embossing powder sticking to areas where I haven't stamped. Then I inked up the stamp with the Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink. And I stamped the greeting onto the cardstock. Here I'm using a stamping platform, which helps if you need to restamp, but for the stamping you can also use an acrylic block. Next, I sprinkled an embossing powder over the stamped image. Here I'm using the metallic copper from Wow. I think it matches the flowers very well. To melt the powder, I took my heat gun. I usually first wait till it gets hot, just a few seconds. Then I aim it at the greeting and then I melt the powder. This greeting is quite big, and if I just cut it into a banner, it would be way too big for this card. What I've been doing recently with greetings, I fussy cut around them. Some sentiment stamps actually come with coordinating dies, but I do not have any and fussy cutting works just fine. Next, I took the vintage photo distress ink and I used it along the edges of the banner with the greeting. I really like this look, but this is another optional step that you can skip. To assemble the card, I used a card base made out of a craft cardstock and I glued the watercolor panel on top of it. For the greeting, I used a foam tape and I adhered it on top of the card. So, the card is finished. Here you can see it in a close-up. You can see how sparkly it is when you use the metallic paints. And here is the card I painted with the normal watercolors, the Winsor & Newton Cotman paints. Here I used a black banner and I used a white embossing powder. I think they are both very pretty cards. I really don't know which one I prefer more. If you would like to see more Christmas card ideas, check out my videos from previous years. The links will be in the description below. Thank you all so much for watching. Hop over to my blog if you would like to see photos of the cards. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.